What I'd like to do now is to provide you with an analysis of the unit on teenagers and parents that you were asked to look at and examine. So it's really feedback on what you've been asked to do. This unit is part of a book that I wrote a long time ago. The book focused on reading comprehension and was geared towards teenagers, and young teenagers of 13 or 14 at that, who were studying towards a language exam. This influenced my choice of topics, of course. I had to choose topics that would interest young teenagers, but also topics that were serious and that could be used for discussion and writing. The first unit of the book was on teenagers and their parents, because I thought that this would be a topic that most teenagers would be interested in talking about or complaining about. The pre-reading task is a questionnaire. You will notice a number of things about it. Firstly, this is in itself a task. The learners were asked to answer the questionnaire and then discuss their findings with members of the group to produce a group response. So there is a focus on meaning, there is a communication problem to solve. They need to find out each other's position. There is a relationship to real-life activities, such as filling in a survey of attitudes. And to some extent, there is a non-linguistic outcome, which is the number of people agreeing or disagreeing with any statement. This is a two-way task, because the responses of everybody need to be counted in order to get the whole picture. It is an open task, because there is no predetermined outcome. It's hard to think whether this is a divergent or a convergent task. To some extent, this is simply not an issue here. And finally, there is the question whether it is a focused task or an unfocused task. You may have noticed that the questions in the questionnaire are taken from the text on the next page. So, in effect, this task was vocabulary preparation for the text. The learners accounted large chunks of the text while answering the questionnaire. They discussed these questions amongst themselves, so encountered the vocabulary again, and then they read the text. So there was quite a lot of vocabulary preparation here. One would probably suggest that this is quite close to the focused end of the continuum. Under the heading First Reading, we find the first while reading activity. The learners are asked to read the passage and complete the table. Again, this is influenced by TBLT thinking. This is an information transfer activity where the learners transfer the information from the text to the table. In this case, this is very clearly a convergent task. The activity under second reading is one that I now find strange. It's quite a nitpicking activity because learners need to go through the text in detail and locate those details that don't appear in the table. This activity was designed to force the learners to reread the text. Today, I would regard this as unnecessary. Of course, it could be thought to improve reading fluency by rereading the text, but the activity, finding the questions that weren't asked, seems to me artificial. The next section is reacting to what you read. In this section, which appears in every unit in the book, I attempted to implement my belief that we need to discuss with the learner the issues that they might find of interest in the text. They will have had some sort of affective response, and I thought that they should verbalize it. Note that questions 3 and 4 try to help the learner assess the validity and the reliability of the report in the weekly. So they are a bit of critical thinking or critical reading. The next section I would like to talk about is the reading between the lines section. You will have noticed that this is a while reading activity in which the learner engages with the text at quite a fine level. But the point is that the learners are not just asked questions about the text, comprehension questions. They're carefully guided and scaffolded to reach the answers. So this is an example of the way I think it's possible to help students to understand details in texts that they read and transfer these skills to other texts. There are other sections that are of interest here. For example, the word recognition exercise. This is the first unit of the book, and this section became more complex throughout the book. I'm not sure this exercise, and this is very clearly an exercise, not a task, I'm not sure it is particularly successful, but it was my attempt to see whether I could implement the findings on word recognition that I had come to realize were really important and which we discussed in Module 2. To sum up, I've tried to show in this lesson that it is possible to construct reading comprehension tasks that will take on board some of the principles of TBLT that we have been discussing. Focus on meaning, a communicative problem to solve, a real-life connection, and judging the success of the task through a non-linguistic outcome. In Module 6, we will return to this topic and work on ways in which you can implement this thinking in your own work.